Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing something very different to what I usually do, which is more fitness and bodybuilding related stuff. I spend a lot of my time on YouTube watching like murder mysteries or like about crime and stuff. There's a lot of girls who do like videos about all sorts, but say like unsolved murders, unsolved kidnappings, missing people, and I mean there's a lot of those videos out there, and there's a lot of the same cases covered over and over again. To do a case which I haven't seen covered, and I already knew one. It's the case of the pizza bomber or the collar bomber. And as I've googled this a lot and I've searched on YouTube for it a lot, and I haven't really found anyone else who's covered this. None of the none of these sort of girls who do the crime cases have covered it, and even there's not even really any good documentaries about it made by like TV companies. There's one made which is quite good, but it's not very up to date because this case has been ongoing for a long time, and it's not up to date, and they go down some paths which aren't really relevant. There is a podcast, and I tried with listening to it. It's by some Australian people, and they just I don't really like podcasts because I don't it's like listening to I don't like the radio. It's just people just like goofing about on air live, and they're just joking about it. I mean, it makes me sound really boring, but I want to listen to the case. I don't want them to they'll say like one fact about this case, and then they'll go they'll bowed over laughing for ages, and it's just like, okay, can we move on? So I only listened to half of that. It was a bit pretty unlistenable. But yeah, I thought I'd cover this case because there's no one else has done it, and I find it a very interesting case. So it's kind of a solved case. It's not really. It was a mystery for a long time. It's now kind of solved. There's still a lot of questions that will never be answered about it, but and it happens in America, whereas I'm from the UK, so I don't really know how famous this is. It's not very famous over here at all, but I don't know how much coverage this got in America, and if everyone already knows about it in America. But there's just not much on the internet. There's some good articles, which is what I've used. I'm going to link them down below, the articles I've sort of used to present my coverage. So I think they're a bit more in depth than what I'm going to say. So this video is just for people who enjoy like watching a video about stuff, it's me talking, showing some pictures, and hearing my thoughts. Whereas you could read this article, it's a bit more in depth. But yeah, I'm going to cover most of it in here anyway. So I'll start this case now. I hope you enjoy, and if you like, please like this video and subscribe if you want to see more like this, because I've got some other case. So this is the case of the pizza bomber. I'm going to start right from the beginning. I'm just going to start as it happened on the day, which was the August the 28th in 2003. So at 2:28 in Erie, Pennsylvania. Yes, there's actually a place in Pennsylvania called Erie, which is where this happened. So it's quite fitting. So in Erie, Pennsylvania, a man with strange-looking stick and a big bulge under his shirt walks into PNC Bank, and then he calmly walks up to the desk and hands the teller a note. The note says, "Gather employees with access codes to the vault and work fast to fill the bag with $250,000. You have only 15 minutes. And then the man reveals that this bulge under his shirt is actually a bomb, which is it's like a big it's like a big handcuff around his neck, and the bomb's there. So that's as you'll see in the pictures, it looks very strange, but yeah. And this walking stick that he's got is actually a shotgun. It's like a handmade shotgun meant to look like a cane. So yeah, but the employees can't get that amount of money. It's a very incredible amount of money to ask for in any sort of bank robbery. They say they can't get that amount of money in the time that he's wanting it, so they just fill the bag with whatever they have, which is $8,702. So this guy then walks out, and they immediately call the police. So the police catch this man 15 minutes later in a nearby parking lot where that's where they arrest him. And this man tells them that he's a pizza delivery driver, and he went to deliver a pizza, and where he was apprehended by 3 black men who pinned him down and put this bomb on him, and told him that he needs to rob a bank. And they gave him a big 3-page letter saying basically it was like a treasure hunt, so he needed to go rob the bank, and then he needs to go around the town of Erie collecting keys. So there's like four locks on this neck, on his collarbone. So he needed to collect the keys, and he only had a limited amount of time to do this. And the note at the end said, act now, think later, or you will die, or something like that. So it was, so this man said that he's robbed a bank, but he's done it as a hostage. So he's not wanting to rob the bank. He's doing it because he's trying to get this bomb off him. They armed him with this shotgun cane and told him to use this to enforce people to enforce the bank people to sort of do what he asks. And then at the end, he's meant to go around this whole thing at the end, when he passes all the stuff over to them, like the money and all the notes and stuff, they were going to unlock this thing off, well, give him the keys to unlock this thing off, and then he would have been free. So he's told the troops a story, but the state troopers just arrest Brian, handcuff him behind his back, and they just sit him down on the road, and then they take cover behind their police doors, and he's just sat on the pavement, and he's shouting at them like, I don't have much time, who's gonna come get this thing off me? And he even says, have you told my boss about this? Like, you know, he's worried about his boss thinking that he's slacking off work or something. And then at this point, local news starts to film live. So the news in Erie the crew starts to film him on the road just sitting. So this whole footage of him sitting on the pavement is actually, you can actually watch it. I'm going to try and insert a clip of it if I can, but I don't really know how to do it, so I'll put pictures in, of course, but if I can get the footage in, I'll do that, and you can hear what he's saying. It's a very strange scene. So the bank, they rang the police. They reported the crime at about 2:30, and then state troopers catch him at 2:45 about, and then state troopers they only call the bomb squad at 3:05, so they've waited a long time to call this bomb squad. And they don't make any attempt to disarm the bomb. I don't think they're trained to do that. So about 25 minutes after Brian's been arrested, the bomb starts emitting an accelerated beeping noise, and then he starts to slowly go backwards as if trying to get away from this bomb that's attached to him, and then the bomb explodes and kills him instantly live on air. And then the bomb squad arrive 3 minutes later. So Brian's been killed by this pipe bomb now. He dies at exactly 3:18 p.m. on the 23rd of August 2003. So after the bombs exploded, the police get to work and they start analysing the evidence. So they analyse the bomb, and they find it operates like a giant handcuff, like I say, like the handcuff goes around the neck, and then the bomb's attached to the front. The metal box that contains the mechanism is crafted very well, but not with professional tools, but it's made by someone who knows what they're doing, and someone who must be quite who might have good experience with making things, being handy, that sort of thing. It contained 2 pipe bombs, and there was decoy wires running through it to put off any would-be disablers, and it had kitchen timers in it. That's how it was timed. And again, there were 4 keys needed to unlock this handcuff from him to stop him from being killed by the bomb. The cane was made from wood and metal. It was handcrafted by someone without professional tools, but someone very handy. And it contained one 12-gauge shotgun shot, but Wells never ever fired this shot. And so they found a letter on him. It was addressed to bomb hostage. It told him that he needed to follow instructions. It ended with act now, think later. It repeatedly reminded him he needed to follow the instructions to get the keys, and it repeatedly reminded him that he couldn't tell anyone, that he couldn't, alert authorities or they'd kill him they said they were watching him and they'd kill him from afar. So obviously Brian didn't alert anyone until he was eventually, and probably always gonna get caught. It's so stupid to think that someone could do all this without getting caught by the police, especially as the first thing he does is rob a bank and then just walk out. And then they want him to do about an hour's worth of running around trying to find these keys. So the letters, I don't know if I can put them on here for you, but I'll definitely link the letters down below and you can read them in full. And I'll insert a picture of the route that Brian was meant to go. So the police officers did attempt this route after Brian was killed on the day, and they got so far and the clues were there, but then because it said to go here and you'll find a note for your next instructions and stuff, and then they went there, and after so long they stopped because someone was watching him complete this, and then when they saw he was caught they must have stopped putting down these clues. So but they still finished. They finished it, and they think it's pretty impossible for him to finish that, even without being caught. Pretty impossible for him to finish this sort of treasure hunt before the bomb exploded. So Brian was pretty much doomed from the start, from dying as soon as this bomb was cuffed on him. It was almost like the people who planned this knew that it wasn't gonna work, and they just wanted to play with police. So a bit about Brian. He was a 46-year-old pizza delivery driver for Mamma Mia Pizzeria in Erie, Pennsylvania, and he had worked there for 30 years since dropping out of high school, and he is known as a very sort of valued and trustworthy employee. He's never late, I don't think, for a shift. He always did, he was always turned up on time. He lived a simple life and never did anything out of the ordinary. Never did any criminal activity. He's just a normal guy, so they didn't suspect that. Well, they did have their suspicions that he was maybe in on it, but there's nothing really to go off from Brian Wells. So they start off going to where Brian worked and seeing where this order that had been made was to. So they discovered that his last order, where he got apprehended by 3 black men, was a sort of TV transmission tower right on the outskirts of the city, and it was only accessible via a dirt track road. And when they searched the area, there was footprints and tire marks matching his vehicle, but there was no other sort of valuable evidence to be sort of gathered from that crime scene. So this case went unsolved for about 7 years. It really baffled FBI. They did sort of not arrest, but they did question one black man that they thought might have been involved, but that led to nowhere, and he's never arrested. There was a series of events which led to the answer of this case, which is very bizarre. And I'll start with about a month later, on September the 20th, 2003, which is about a month after Brian Wells' death, a man called William Rothstein, who was a local handyman, calls the police to report that the body of James Roden was in the freezer of his garage. So William Rothstein, who was a local handyman in Erie, Pennsylvania, he phoned 911 and he said, in this address, in the freezer, you'll find the body of a man, and his name is James Roden. Rothstein says he wasn't the one who killed him. It was actually his former fiancée and James Roden's then girlfriend who shot him and killed him. But he had agreed to hide the body for her. But she asked him eventually to dispose of the body, and when it came down to actually disposing of this body, he just couldn't go through with it and would rather turn himself in. I think since he was frozen, one idea was to cut up the body, and he's just like, no, I cannot do this. So when he phoned for the police, James Roden's girlfriend who killed him, Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong, was arrested the next day. So strange facts about Rothstein was he actually lived right next to the TV transmission tower that Brian Wells delivered his last pizza order to. And then while he was in police custody, he told police that he'd been in unbearable pain for weeks. I think he had some terminal illness, and he'd even gone as far to write a suicide note. They found the note in his home, and it denied his involvement in the murder of James Roden, but it also began with, "This has nothing to do with the Brian Wells case." About a year later, Bill Rothstein died from lymphoma in 2004, and he was actually questioned on his deathbed about the Brian Wells case, but he said absolutely nothing until he died. So during this year, Marjorie Diehl-Armstrong, the one who actually killed James Roden, the man in the freezer, she was staying at a state hospital, Mayview State Hospital, and she was unable to answer any questions due to her mental health state. She was very mentally ill. She was undergoing psychiatric evaluation to see if she could be prosecuted for the murder of James Roden. And then on January 2005, she is charged with the murder, but charged also as mentally ill. In January 2005, she's charged as guilty but mentally ill to the Roden murder, and was sentenced to 7 to 20 years in a state prison. However, later in April, she confessed to a state trooper that she actually had knowledge about the Brian Wells case, and she said she'd tell them as long as they transferred her to a minimum state security prison. She told them that she had given Rothstein the kitchen timers that were used in the bomb, and she said that Rothstein was the mastermind of the plot. So I could make a whole separate video on Diehl-Armstrong, and there is actually a good 15-minute documentary on her, which also goes over this case as well, because she's involved in it. But I'll just give you a brief overview of her. So she was an extremely intelligent woman when she was younger, and described as someone having encyclopedic knowledge, but she grew a bit, she must have had some mental health issues. She grew a bit, what you'd call mad, as she got older. She actually was already known to have murdered her first husband about 30 years before this, when she was about 35, I think. She had he was asleep and she shot him 6 times. She'd actually shot him and then reloaded her gun and then shot him again. So when she was in court for this murder, she presented herself as a battered woman and said she had shot him in self-defense. So she was actually acquitted for this murder. She never actually served any time for it, because the court saw her as a battered woman, so with domestic violence. And she was let free with this murder. And then her next husband died from a head injury. When he came into hospital, he died from he died from the head injury, but she said that he'd actually fallen down the stairs. But this is, that's what at the time, but obviously this woman was very dangerous. So when she was questioned about this Brian Wells case, she said she wasn't actually involved in it. She just supplied the kitchen timers and she just knew about it. She wasn't actually actively involved in it. But, she had mental health issues and she spoke too much, and she'd already implicated herself. She knew, she took them around where she was on the day and they could just tell she was in on it. But she didn't give any more information than that. until later that year, a man called Kenneth Barnes, who was a friend of Diehl-Armstrong's, he was her fishing buddy, I think, was questioned because he was turned in by his brother-in-law. And he revealed that Armstrong was actually the mastermind of this plot to rob the bank. So he gave the motive for this, and what had happened was Armstrong's mother had died and left a $500,000 inheritance. It all went to her dad. So her dad gave her $50,000 and told her that he was going to spend the rest before he died, and she got really angry because she thought he was spending her inheritance money. So she wanted someone to kill her dad for her so that she could get the inheritance before he spent it all. And bearing in mind, this woman is very mentally ill and she was never able to hold down a job due to her mental illness. So I think she went through that $50,000 in no time. So she asked Kenneth Barnes to kill her dad, and he was like, yeah, I'll do it, but I need $125,000. And she was like, well, I'll give you the money when I get the inheritance, but he was like, no, I want this money straight up. So that was the motivation for robbing this bank. On August the 27th, 2003, which is a day before this heist actually began, that him, Rothstein, Armstrong and Wells met up to discuss what was going to happen the next day and to finalise all the details. So the initial plan, and the plan that Wells knew until the day, was that the bomb was actually going to be fake, and then if Wells was at court, then he could just say, well, I thought the bomb was real. But on the day it actually turned out that they made the bomb real, and when Wells didn't know this until he actually went to the TV transmission tower, and they had to fire. When he realised it was live, he tried running away, and they found the tracks of him like running away from them, and they fired a warning shot at him. So they then put this bomb on him. However, Barnes told the story, but Armstrong denied it because she said she wasn't involved in this plan. However, after trial, both would be charged for the murder of Brian Wells. Barnes received 45 years. He got a lesser sentence because I think they had an agreement if he testified against Armstrong, who was trying to maintain her innocence, he'd get a lesser sentence. And Armstrong was sentenced to life plus 30 years. But she died in prison of breast cancer on April the 4th, 2017, and she was 68 years old. So that is generally what happened, but there's still a lot of questions after that. From what I can remember about James Roden, the man who died, he was dead a few months before this heist began, using the freezer. And I don't know why he was killed, but I think it was because Armstrong might have told him about this plot, and he was like, that is ridiculous, and she might have got angry and shot him. Or he might have gone, she might have thought that he's going to tell someone about it, so she shot him because of that. Or she might have shot him for something unrelated, as she had already killed at least one of her husbands, if not more. And Rothstein must have been involved for his handiness, because he was the one who built the bomb and he built the cane. But then if he built the bomb and built the cane, was he the one who decided that the bomb should be real? Like, who decided that the bomb should be real? I think, in my opinion, I think it was Rothstein who decided this, because I think Armstrong was so mentally ill. I think she thought that this might have happened, and she was more concerned about money and about getting this money to pay this Kenneth Barnes to kill her dad. Whereas I think Rothstein knew that this wasn't going to work, but I think he wanted to have a bit of fun with police. I think he wanted to prove that he was smarter than police. I think that's why. I think he knew that Wells was going to be caught, so he wanted to make this whole thing, and to to be fair, he is the one who's died with all the answers, because he said nothing, you know. I know the curious fact was that Wells never implicated his killers, even as he was caught by police. He always maintained it was these 3 black men who had apprehended and put the bomb on him. He never said, look, it was Rothstein, or he was like, look, Armstrong did this, you know, because he must have known that the bomb, well, he knew that the bomb was real, but I think he might have had some hidden hope that it wasn't, that it was just a threat to get him to really look scared and really look like he was a hostage. They could have also made the bomb real because they knew that he would talk. I don't know, but if he died, then he wouldn't have delivered the money. So I don't know. It was a very strange thing. And you might wonder why Wells was involved. Well, actually, his family still think that he was. All we've got to go off is that Armstrong and Kenneth Barnes said that he was in on it. But his family think that he was innocent. However, I don't know where I read this from. I think it is a fact, though, that Wells was involved with a prostitute called Jessica, and that Kenneth Barnes' house acted as a sort of brothel. So that's how he knew Kenneth Barnes, because he'd go to his house to have sex with this prostitute. And I think he really liked this prostitute. I think he was running out of money to see her, so that if he acted as the hostage, he'd get a cut of this inheritance. I think that is the motivation for him being in it. But then, as I said, I've only read this on a few websites. I also read that even if this whole thing had worked, which obviously wasn't going to work, that if Armstrong had inherited this $500,000 or so inheritance, and her dad's inheritance as well, she wouldn't have actually got that much, because I think her dad had a lot of debt, or he'd already spent a lot of the money by the time this happened. So that is just one thing to keep in mind. It just sort of shows her sort of mental health state, believing that she was going to get rich, you know, off this. As I said, you know, this case wouldn't have been solved unless Rothstein picked up that phone and called about this murder. This led to the arrest and the confession of people involved. Rothstein died a year later without revealing anything, but quite handy for him because he lived so close to this TV transmission tower. Quite handy for him that this Roden guy was murdered, because it took the attention away from him a bit and onto Armstrong. He must have also known he was going to die soon, because he was in so much pain and he was thinking of committing suicide. I do think that Rothstein probably had the biggest role in this case. I don't know who came up with this whole thing about getting someone to rob a bank but then being actually a hostage. I don't know if I've heard of anything like this before. Like, it's one thing robbing a bank and trying to get away with it, but having this like backup that this person who's robbing the bank is actually a hostage, and if they're caught then they're not going to go to prison. It's a very sort of far-fetched idea, and a very almost creative idea. Maybe it would work in a book or a movie. But yeah, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed this case. It's very I was told about, my dad was the one who told me about it like a couple of years ago when we were on holiday or something. I think because he found it really interesting, and he said to me that they're going to make a film about it, but I don't think they've made a film about it. There is a film with that Eisenberg guy, you know, the guy who's in The Social Network. I can't remember what the film's called, but that was a film about the same thing, like a guy robbing a bank as a hostage, so getting a bomb strapped on him. And the people who made the film were like, we were not aware of the Brian Wells case, but obviously we knew a bit about it for legal purposes. So I think they did copy off it a bit, you know, like, don't think they were completely in the dark about it. But yeah, I'm going to link everything down below that I sort of referenced off and where I got my pictures from, and you can read a bit more about it, a bit more about the specifics, and you could watch that documentary about Marjorie, because she she's a bit of an interesting character in this. Yeah, so that's everything. I really enjoyed filming this. I've been wanting to tell this story on YouTube for a while now. I've just not had time due to not exams but uni in general. So yeah, so thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like this, and it lets me know that I could maybe do another video like this. And yeah, see you in the next one.